Welcome to Naked History. You're listening to Unearthed. Abu Simbel, Egypt's largest rock-cut temple, carved into a 100-foot-high cliff. Inside, a mysterious sanctuary to honor strange gods.
This is an extreme feat of engineering, and in my opinion, it is one of the wonders of the ancient world.
This colossal structure was built 3,000 years ago by the pharaoh Ramses II.
He was braver, mightier, and more powerful than any other Egyptian king.
Ramses transformed himself into the greatest ruler in Egypt's history. How did he do it? Could the secrets of his meteoric rise be locked inside this magnificent temple? To solve these mysteries, we'll deconstruct Abu Simbel's giant statues and open its sacred chambers to uncover the truth behind how Ramses became Egypt's greatest ever pharaoh. Egypt, land of the pharaohs. They were fearless warriors, master builders, leaders of a powerful ancient religion. Then came Ramses II. His ambition? To surpass the achievements of all his predecessors and go down in history as the greatest pharaoh of all time. The crowning glory of his reign? His great temple at Abu Simbel.
Ramses II was a mighty pharaoh, and he built this temple to show people exactly that: intimidating, powerful, and proud.
Overlooking the River Nile in southern Egypt, this mighty stone structure is one of the largest rock-cut temples in the world. Could decoding its secrets unlock how Ramses became Egypt's greatest pharaoh? Abu Simbel is a spectacle in stone carved from the cliff face. 4 colossal statues of Ramses adorn the front. Hidden behind the magnificent facade runs a giant 30-foot-high hypostyle hall, flanked by 8 imposing statues of the pharaoh. 160 feet inside the cliff sits a sanctuary to the great gods of Egypt. But is Abu Simbel really just a temple to these deities? Can decoding its hidden messages unlock the secrets of Ramses' success?
At first glance, it looks as if Ramses II had built this temple to celebrate and worship the sun god Ra, in Egyptian religion, the source of all life and the creator of the universe. But actually, I think there's more to it than that.
Archaeologist and explorer John Ward is an expert in ancient Egyptian engineering.
There are many features here, falcons, symbols one expects of a temple dedicated to sun worship, that adorn the front terrace. But above us, Ra himself.
John investigates a theory that this great monument is no ordinary temple. He thinks it contains an encoded message, and that solving it will reveal the first step Ramses took to achieve greatness. When the sun's rays strike the temple, they flood the outer chambers with light. 160 feet deep into the cliff, the sanctuary remains in darkness. But 2 days a year, something extraordinary happens. On February 22nd and October 22nd, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the temple entrance. Its rays penetrate the holy sanctuary and bathe the gods in light. How did Ramses align his temple with the sunrise on just 2 dates each year? And why? John believes a clue lies at the most famous of all archaeological sites in ancient Egypt: the Great Pyramids.
I'm holding a map of the Giza Plateau, and I'm looking at the pyramids and the Sphinx and all of the surrounding monuments. And one thing that is striking straight away is its north and south axis, aligned to both the north and south compass points.
A priesthood of surveyors achieved this feat by applying a deep knowledge of the night sky. How they did so remains a mystery. Some experts think they tracked the path of two bright stars to find the direction of true north. And they were astonishingly accurate.
Archaeologists have determined that all of the monuments on the Giza Plateau have been aligned within 1/10 of a degree.
So if surveyor priests used their knowledge of the stars to align the pyramids, how did they align Abu Simbel with our star, the sun? John believes they used a simple but ingenious technique.
The priest would stand behind this rod, which would be anchored to the ground in front of where the temple is going to be. The morning sunrise would cast a shadow across the ground. By placing a marker in the sand at the end of the shadow and repeating this process day after day over a period of a year, the ancient surveyors were able to create an arc, basically a record of every morning sunrise.
Once the priests had recorded a whole year's worth of solar observations, they could align the temple with the rising sun on any date they chose. So, why did they pick two dates in February and October?
Some believe that the February date marks Ramses' birthday, while October marks his ascension to the throne.
But there's more to this mystery than special dates. John's convinced that if he can decode the identities of the figures inside the temple, he can unlock its true purpose. Three statues represent the old gods of Egypt: Ptah, Lord of Truth; Amun, Lord of the Sky; and on the far right, the sun god Ra. But who is the fourth figure? John discovers a clue hidden in plain sight: an encrypted message carved on the temple facade.
Standing above the entrance here is the sun god Ra, but Ramses has done something pretty ingenious. He's hidden a message within the statue itself that reveals the true function of this temple complex.
With his falcon's head and sun disk, at first glance, the statue looks like Ra, the most important Egyptian god, creator of the earth and of life itself. But his hands hold clues to a different identity. The right one grasps an usur, a symbol denoting the word strength. And in his left hand, he holds the symbol Ma'at, meaning truth and justice on earth, order and harmony in the cosmos. But joined together, these three symbols spell another word: Usur Ma'at Ra, a name that reveals the temple's true purpose.
Usur Ma'at Ra was the throne name of Ramses II, and it was the name that he was known by throughout the whole land of Egypt. The symbolism that surrounds us proves that he built and dedicated this temple to himself.
The statue above the temple's entrance, the fourth figure in the sanctuary. They both represent Ramses, not as a man, but as a god. All pharaohs were considered divine, but secondary to the old gods of Egypt. Ramses went one step further. He dared to show he was their equal. By depicting himself as a giant-sized living god, Ramses had taken the first step to securing his status as the greatest. But cutting this huge statement of power from an entire cliff face was an unprecedented challenge. How did Ramses do it? And was this just one part of a far bigger plan to win Ramses the title of Egypt's greatest ever pharaoh? Inside this mighty temple, two giant chambers stretch 160 feet into the cliff. Skilled quarrymen carved them from the solid rock. Workers who applied knowledge gained over many centuries from excavating deep tombs, like those in the Valley of the Kings. They used bronze tools to hollow out huge chambers and tunnels. The interior may have been Abu Simbel's most dangerous construction job. But it's the temple's exterior that is the greatest puzzle. 105 feet tall and 125 feet wide. This is the largest facade of any rock-cut temple in Egypt. How did Ramses execute a design on such a huge scale? The statues on the facade are 15 times the height of the average male. Each mighty head is 13 feet wide and adorned with the double crown, symbolizing power over Egypt. At his feet stand Ramses' children, wife, and mother, a royal guard for the sun god Ra. At the summit sit 22 sacred baboons, whose cry the Egyptians believed welcomed the rising sun. How did Ramses' masons cut back this entire cliff face? When Ramses was pharaoh, the ancient Egyptians had been master builders for more than 1,000 years. They'd engineered the Great Pyramids of Giza and turned stone blocks into works of art. But archaeologist John Ward knows that to build Abu Simbel, Ramses' workforce had to overcome a challenge they'd never faced before.
Ramses II's building plan was unprecedented in both size, scale, and ambition. He wanted nothing less than the largest rock-cut temple Egypt had ever seen.
Some scholars estimate that quarrymen had to remove 13,000 tons of rock to cut the temple from the cliff face. Chipping away piece by piece would have taken far too long. So how did they do it? Adel Kalani is an expert in ancient Egyptian building technologies. He believes that Abu Simbel's masons removed stones systematically, block by block.
The masons start with making a line of holes. This line of holes, they need to splitting the blocks from the bedrock.
Masons pack palm tree skin inside the holes to hold the chisel in place. Then they strike them one by one until the rock starts to split. Adel times how long his men need to cut a single sandstone block weighing 2.5 tons.
On the base of our experiments here, 2 workmen can do 2.5 tons in 20 hours.
So, how long did it take the workmen to cut back the rock face at Abu Simbel?
I think around 20 workmen can remove 13,000 tons from the face of the Abu Simbel in around or less than 2 years.
But reducing the cliff face was just the beginning.
The quarrymen had merely created a blank canvas. Now the craftsmen faced a second set of challenges: to cut back and carve the statues of the great temple.
Sculpting the temple facade with 4 65-foot-high statues was no simple task. Getting the measurements wrong could jeopardize the whole project. So how did the stonemasons ensure all the statues were identical? John thinks they scaled up an ingenious technique traditionally used to paint tombs.
The grid technique that the artisans apply to the wall prior to painting a tomb allows them to transfer any image from a scale drawing onto a much larger surface.
The grid breaks a complex picture down into lots of smaller, easier-to-draw images. John is convinced that Ramses surveyors used this same technique at Abu Simbel. But how did they mark out a grid on a rock face 100 feet high? John believes that the surveyors developed their own innovative solution.
The square level, a most ingenious device invented by the ancient Egyptians. Basically, it allowed the surveying of a straight horizontal line, accurate within 1 centimeter over a whole span of 100 meters.
To investigate how it worked, Adel's team stretches a cord soaked in red paint between 2 square levels and snap it against the rock face to mark a horizontal line. Ancient builders may have supersized this technique at Abu Simbel. They would have used scaffolding to mark out giant rows of horizontal lines. Then, from the top of the cliff face, it's likely they hung weighted ropes and drew vertical lines to complete their grid. Using this system, they scaled up smaller drawings to produce outlines of Ramses on the rock face. Only after marking out the facade and the entranceway could workers begin to cut their pharaoh and the chambers of his temple out of solid rock.
This building project was overseen by Ramses himself, but managed and executed to meticulous detail by the quarrymen and the master masons.
Ramses built Egypt's greatest rock-cut temple as part of his plan to become Egypt's greatest ever pharaoh. But if Ramses built Abu Simbel to glorify himself, why did he construct a second temple next door? And why is it dedicated to someone else? To the north of the Great Temple stands a second smaller temple cut from the same cliff face. 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh himself and 2 of a woman stand guard at the entrance. Inside, carvings show her praying to the gods, making them offerings, while goddesses anoint her with a sacred crown. But this rock-cut chapel is a puzzle. Why did Ramses build a temple to this woman? And how did this help to magnify his own reputation? Maria Nielsen investigates this mystery. She decodes an ancient inscription on the temple's facade to reveal the woman's identity. Nefertari, Ramses' first wife.
This temple is curious. We know that the pharaohs built tombs for their great royal wives, but they didn't build temples to them.
The statues indicate just how highly Ramses regarded his wife.
To the left, we got Queen Nefertari. To the right, King Ramses. Now they're equal in size, which means that he treated her as his equal. No other king in Egyptian history treated his queen with such respect.
Ramses had built Abu Simbel's large temple to proclaim himself the greatest of Egypt's pharaohs. So why did he allow Nefertari to share in his glory? Maria believes the answer lies in a forgotten temple 200 miles north of Abu Simbel. One of its shrines contains an ancient inscription that Maria thinks reveals why Ramses believed Nefertari deserved her own temple. It shows his wife performing a strange ritual.
Here we have Queen Nefertari herself standing in front of the hippopotamus goddess Tawiret, the goddess of childbirth.
Beside the inscription is a message, unlike any other in Egypt.
She who satisfies the gods. Now that's a title usually connected to the king as a high priest of the gods. To my knowledge, Queen Nefertari was the only queen who was honored with this grand title.
The inscription reveals Ramses elevated his wife to joint supreme head of ancient Egypt's state religion. Why did he promote Nefertari to this level? What did she have that Ramses needed so badly? At Abu Simbel, Maria finds an intriguing clue. Inscriptions that reveal Nefertari's ancestry.
So what we got here are the titles of Queen Nefertari, starting with hereditary noblewoman, followed by great of praise. Now the first title is what's really important because it established her as a daughter of a nobleman, which is obviously an important clue.
Ramses' origins were far humbler. His grandfather was a soldier who had been given the throne. Ramses' family had ruled Egypt for little more than a decade.
His grandfather was a commoner. There is a family secret. Ramses did not come from a long line of royalty.
Nefertari gave Ramses the single most important thing he needed to become Egypt's greatest pharaoh: legitimacy.
The family was very well aware that his right to rule could be challenged. So by marrying Nefertari, the noblewoman, he could secure his right to rule.
Queen Nefertari was Ramses' wife for 24 years, bearing him 4 sons, who became high priests and commanders of his army. Of all the pharaoh's wives, Nefertari was the most important. She organized the royal household and the lives of Ramses' other wives and children. As priestess, Nefertari conducted sacred rituals with the pharaoh and held a unique position as joint supreme head of Egypt's state religion. Nefertari even engaged in diplomacy. She sent letters and gifts to foreign queens to maintain peace between nations.
Ramses was Egypt's most powerful man, but he also made Nefertari the most powerful woman.
Decoding Abu Simbel reveals the vital role Ramses' chief wife played in his plan to become the greatest pharaoh of all time. But does Ramses' account of a famous chariot battle prove he was also Egypt's greatest warrior? Or its greatest self-publicist? Inside the temple's central chamber, religious carvings cover the walls. The divine Ramses burns incense before Isis, goddess of magic. He offers bread and wine to the gods of creation, and kneels before Ra, god of the rising sun. But not all the carvings inside the temple are religious. There are also scenes of violence. Ramses at war, crushing the enemy, and beheading prisoners. Why are there battle scenes on the walls of a temple? Maria Nielsen searches for clues chiseled into Abu Simbel's wall carvings.
One of the most important responsibilities of the pharaoh was to show the gods and his people that he could maintain the country in peace by defeating his enemies.
All Egyptian pharaohs depicted themselves as military strongmen. Obsessed with being the greatest, Ramses proclaimed his victories louder than any pharaoh before him. His most spectacular was against the rival Hittite Empire at the Battle of Kadesh. Ramses carved in stone an account of what was the greatest chariot battle in history.
He claims that the Hittites attacked and he had to rush to the defense of his forces. And with these chariots and horses, he came to the rescue and he crushes the enemies like crocodiles falling into the river.
What was it about the Egyptian war chariot that gave Ramses such an advantage on the battlefield? Egyptologist Yasra Ibrahim investigates this mystery. She puts a replica chariot through its paces to test the technology Ramses claimed he used to win his great victory. She discovers the chariot is a fast and stable fighting platform.
The Egyptians revolutionized the manufacture of the chariots. They introduced the 6 spokes for the wheel, which made it move much faster. The 2 wheels are far apart, which made it very difficult to tip over.
But it's clear the Egyptian chariot also had serious drawbacks.
The problem with the semicircular body is that it's very low, so it doesn't really protect you. You can easily get shot. Another disadvantage is that it takes a lot of time to turn around.
And some experts believe Hittite chariots were more robust and better protected. So, if it wasn't technology that delivered Ramses the crushing victory he claims, what did? Yasra investigates at Karnak, a huge temple complex 300 miles north of Abu Simbel. Here she discovers a clue locked inside a poem that recounts the battle.
So according to the poem, Ramses found himself alone on the battlefield, abandoned by his army. So he turned to his father, the god Ammon, who made him invincible. After that, Ramses claims to single-handedly defeated 2,500 enemies.
Ramses' account of the battle is pure fantasy. And when Yasra ignores his claims of divine intervention and sudden miraculous powers, a very different version of events begins to emerge. In his war against the Hittites, Ramses split his army and led half his chariots north to seize the enemy fort of Kadesh, which he thought was unguarded. But Ramses was tricked by Hittite spies. East of Kadesh, 3,000 Hittite chariots launched a surprise attack. Ramses rallied his troops. Helped by reinforcements, he engaged his enemy. But the result was a standoff. Ramses failed to take Kadesh. Humiliated, he was forced to withdraw. So why did Ramses lie about the battle in his temple at Abu Simbel?
To Ramses, truth was not important. The only thing that mattered was to establish himself as the greatest warrior of Egypt.
Ramses used Abu Simbel as a weapon of political propaganda and rewrote history to promote the myth that he was an invincible military leader. But Ramses wanted to guarantee his achievements would surpass those of all his predecessors. Was this temple just one of many buildings he erected to make that dream a reality? And if Abu Simbel was hewn from a solid rock face, why is it crisscrossed with deep, straight cracks? Abu Simbel was a construction project of epic proportions. Guided by a massive grid, quarrymen removed stone from the cliff in giant blocks to shape the beginnings of the facade. Masons then honed the rough blocks into human shapes, one statue at a time. And skilled sculptors finally carved the intricate details before the entire temple was brightly painted. Its construction left 13,000 tons of stone blocks cast aside. So what did Ramses do with them? And does the answer reveal his plans for greatness extended far beyond Abu Simbel? To find out, Yasra Ibrahim travels to Luxor, the ancient capital of Upper Egypt. Here, Ramses created this architectural wonder to rival Abu Simbel. It's called the Ramesseum. Like Abu Simbel, it was designed to encourage the people of Egypt to worship Ramses as a god for all eternity.
The Ramesseum is the mortuary temple of Ramses II. Ramses built this temple to preserve his name and promote his cult.
Yasra believes decoding its true purpose could unlock how Ramses finally realized his lifelong ambition: to be the greatest of Egypt's pharaohs. Beside the temple is a series of strange arched chambers that look completely different from the rest of the complex.
These chambers were used to hold grain, wheat, and barley. People would bring the grain and climb up to the roof and pour it through holes in the ceiling. Then grain would be stored here in huge amounts.
In ancient Egypt, grain was currency. So how much money did these granaries hold? Yasra measures their combined floor area to calculate the wealth Ramses amassed.
I have measured every single chamber on this site, and I calculated the total floor area of all chambers, and it comes up to 8,261 square meters, which would total to 16.5 million liters of grain.
That's almost 10,000 tons, more than the weight of the Eiffel Tower. Enough to pay a workforce equivalent to the population of a medium-sized city. But why did Ramses store so much wealth inside his mortuary temple? Yasra believes it's because the Ramesseum served more than one purpose. It was a temple dedicated to Ramses, a cult center for his worship, built to preserve the pharaoh's name forever. But Ramses also added a school to educate generations of administrators, paid for by the stores of grain. Ramses grouped religion, central bank, and State Department under one roof. But why did he do it? Yasra thinks Ramses used this vast complex as the control center for a project unprecedented in Egyptian history. A nationwide building program, more ambitious in scale than any pharaoh had ever attempted before.
He wanted to make his name more famous and his achievement more glorious than any of his predecessors. He launched nothing less than his own building program across all of Egypt.
From the Mediterranean coast to the southern desert, Ramses built huge statues, giant temples, and towering obelisks. Ramses believed that becoming Egypt's greatest ever builder was the final step to becoming its greatest ever pharaoh. This could explain what happened to the leftover stone quarried during Abu Simbel's construction. Ramses' administrators may have ensured it was reused for another of the pharaoh's great projects. Ramses' building program was the greatest in all ancient Egyptian history. To this day, more monuments bear his name than any other pharaoh, including his mighty temple at Abu Simbel. But this soaring monument has one final enigma. This megastructure is covered by a grid of deep, straight cracks. How did they get here? And what secret Egyptian building technique do they reveal that's been hidden for more than 3,000 years? Abu Simbel was hewn from solid rock. So where did these cracks come from? The clue lies in their age. These cracks weren't made in antiquity, but just 6 decades ago. In 1960, the government of Egypt built a new dam across the Nile. It transformed 2.5 million acres of desert into farmland. But the dam also created a giant lake. To prevent Abu Simbel from being submerged, international engineers mounted an unprecedented rescue mission. They cut the temple into pieces and rebuilt it on higher ground away from the rising waters.
They cut the monument into individual blocks, and I'm standing right next to one here. This cut line descends all the way down and then continues all the way along here to this corner and then descends here. This huge megalithic block once laid down there in this original position. And each block was actually hoisted by crane to this location, creating the new Abu Simbel.
Engineers raced to transport Abu Simbel piece by piece, 130 feet up to the top of the cliff.
One can't even begin to conceptualize what would have happened if one of the cranes had faltered, if one of the legs of Ramesses had fallen to the ground and smashed. Thousands of years of archaeology just lost in a second.
Rescued from destruction, moving Ramses' great temple revealed the last of its secrets. Evidence of engineering expertise that lay hidden for 3,000 years.
Those clear lines of stratification in the upper legs of Ramesses there clearly show us that the ancient Egyptians had an understanding of the geology and the makeup of this mountain.
Abu Simbel's builders selected the hardest layers of rock to carve out load-bearing walls strong enough to support the weight of the cliff above. John Ward believes this was a deliberate design feature, incorporated to ensure Ramses' mighty temple lasted for millennia.
It was only when the modern engineers had actually reassembled this temple that they appreciated the art, the science, and the engineering that had gone into actually creating this great monument.
The largest rock-cut temple in Egyptian history, with 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh, and a sacred inner chamber aligned with the sunrise. Abu Simbel proclaimed an idealized version of Ramses and immortalized him as a living god. But the temple also reveals how Ramses II made himself Egypt's greatest pharaoh. He secured his grip on power through marriage, built more monuments than any of his ancestors, and rewrote history to glorify his achievements. Ramses the Great transformed Egypt and won a glittering reputation that has lasted 3,000 years. You've been listening to Naked History. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave a comment below, and be sure to follow Naked History for a brand new episode every week. Naked History is brought to you by Windfall Films.